This was the Sony A7S III before the Sony A7S III. And what I mean by that, this little camera came in and shook up the market. And then it wasn't just because of its technological advances, it was kind of the brand that was putting this out. And it was kind of how it put together all of the different components into one of the, early power hybrids on the market. And it was because this brand still to this day isn't considered, one of the big three, if you will, but they're a very, very respected brand. But full frame was the thing at the time when this came out. And this is an APS-C camera. And it combined things from photo cameras and video cameras and gave you real, and I mean real video capabilities. For the first time, really like compared in combination with that hybrid photography ability. This is a tactile, like for lack of better terms, like you have to physically manage this camera. And so when you do get the shot, it's rewarding. And we're gonna talk about the Fuji X-T3, 2026. Let's get into it. So what made this camera special? And when it came out in 2018, the market had just shifted. And this basically took a lot of the good features that you could get in some of these other cameras and kind of combined them into one. But not only did it do that, it came out at $1,499. And this, I think the EOS R, if I remember correct, was right at $1,900 or $1,899. This one came out at $1,499 for the body and then $1,899 with the kit lens, which I believe is an 18 to 55. Got that in my office. That's not what I'm shooting on, but I'll share lenses in a second because that's a really big part of why this was such a big value at that time. And it didn't necessarily beat every camera and every mark or anything like that. It just was like top 5 in a lot. And so for video, 4K 60 on this body in 2018 was unheard of. And it was only a 1.25x crop. Now this is back when we were still trying to get 4K 30 on a lot of different cameras. 1080p was still the normal upload on YouTube, right? 1080p was still the standard there. So 4K wasn't even like, something that you had to have in a camera body. And here we are, Fuji releasing 4K 60 with only a 1.25x crop, and then 4K 30. And then, 11 frames per second, photos on mechanical, and then 30 frames per second electronic. And a brand new sensor, 26.1 megapixels. And I'm off the top of the head, I'm not X-Trans CMOS sensor at the time. And I'm a nerd, so I was in my deep research mode and I was looking at the EOS R. I never really looked at Panasonic, it was just never a brand that really caught, that it just wasn't. Panasonic has some great stuff, it just for whatever reason just wasn't a brand that I looked at. But this was supposed to have really great autofocus, and because I was going to be in front of the camera, that was really important to me. But so that's why this camera was so freaking amazing when it came out. Like it had all of these features in like literally top 3 to top 5 across the board. And it wasn't even like I said, it wasn't a big 3. It wasn't Nikon, it wasn't Sony, it wasn't Canon. It was none of those things at the time. And the other thing that made it really valuable, I spoke about it a second ago, which was the glass lenses. And this is the reason that I think Sony is, regardless of what you say from a sales standpoint with Canon, I think this is the reason that Sony is the best ecosystem on the market. So the X mount is another reason why I think that the Fuji X-T3 really took off in 2018, because it's an APS-C camera. So the lenses are small. Not only they're small, they're more affordable than the full frame, competitors, if you will. And not only just that, the mount was basically open. It feels like the X mount is open. I don't know if we even talk about this, but I feel like the X mount is open. I built my first kit with 6 different Viltrox lenses, and this was before Viltrox was known as the powerhouse that it is today, dropping all these different great lenses. I found them on eBay and I think Amazon, and I bought them because they were affordable and it was all I could afford at the time. Another lens that I think was called like the Midakong or something like that, 50 millimeters, 0.95 aperture. And that's still one of my favorite pictures that I've taken of my kids to this day. And I'll, still one of my favorite pictures. But the X mount made this camera what it was because not only was it a video powerhouse, it was a photo powerhouse, it was APS-C, and that made the lenses extremely small, mobile, and affordable. And it was an open mount. And so those 5 things all at one time just was a plethora of different things that allowed this camera to take off. And it's not even just that. This camera looks amazing. I mean, it's 2026, and you can get really great footage out of this. And so with that being said, I think that's really the reason, those 5 things is the reason that this camera took off. And it's still capable of doing great work today in 2026.
Soul searching, fall apart, tunnel vision, hiding in the dark. Well, I ain't gonna holler before I really bleed. Salvation or quick fix remedy. You said I never could change. I thought I never could change. They said I never could change. Damn right, never would. Leave the light on.
It's not a perfect camera. It wasn't a perfect camera when it released, and it's definitely not a perfect camera in 2026. But it's still pretty much the same things today that it was back then, with the caveat of autofocus. I think the main reason this camera can't keep up today is the autofocus. Now, the autofocus does fine. It's decent, but it's one of the main reasons that I switched, because being in front of the camera more than behind the camera means the autofocus cannot miss. And I cannot tell you how many times I recorded something to find out that I wasn't in focus. At the time it released, though, it was pretty good. And again, you can work around that. And it depends on what you're shooting with it. Would I shoot sports with it in 2026? No. But talking heads and stuff like I'm doing now, it's great for that. The second thing was, really big thing, there's no in-body image stabilization, no IBIS. And that means that sometimes when you miss with a photo, it's not because of the autofocus, it's because the shutter press is a pretty decent kind of 2-stage thing where you can halfway push to get things in focus, and then you push it the rest of the way to snap the shutter. But it is a mechanical shutter. And when you push it, sometimes the camera just shifts, and it's simply because of that. And it's not autofocus. You just move the camera as you're hitting the button, and now your photo's blurry. And that still happens, even though I know that's there. You can minimize that or mitigate that by buying one of those buttons that you can screw into the top and gives you more surface area and a little bit more control over that push, that press. But that's a real thing there. The second thing, like I said, it's not a fully articulating screen. And so for people like myself, where again I'm in front more than I'm behind, you have to use a monitor like I'm doing now with the Atomos Ninja V. And lastly, battery life is subpar. Today the battery life is horrible. I got it rigged up with a V mount right now, and so that's the way I'm rocking it right now. And there used to be like a limit as far as like how long you could record. I think it was 4 gigabytes or something like that. They fixed that with firmware. But the rest of it had tally lights, like, it had the manual knobs at the top for a quick adjustment. You didn't have to go into the menus much at all, like barely at all. Perfect. The time that it came out. And I think it's a really good camera for 2026. And I'm even teaching my daughter photography and videography, and she has an eye. She really does. And she was using this camera this week to take photos while I was working on a lens review, on the L mount lens review. And this photo she took was freaking fantastic. And she's taken some others in the past too that are really good. But because ultra wide lens allow you to get the entire gem right now, so like you can get a whole photo of them and the court at the same time. You can work on centering or setting your frame. Okay. So this is about to be super wide. That means you're gonna have more image in view.
Okay.
So now when you point it out there at them, look how much wider it is.
Yeah.
So now you can go out there, go get pictures. Coach ain't gonna say nothing, go ahead. This camera is really good for teaching and learning because everything is right there on top. And you can learn the exposure triangle really fast with this camera. You can learn how to make adjustments really fast with this camera. I don't always trust the exposure on the screen, like the exposure meter. I feel like it's off sometimes. But I don't know. If you can find one of these for a low price, or like used on MPB or something, Adorama used or something like that, and you just want something fun to play with, and like you can get X mount lenses for dirt cheap, and you potentially can get this for dirt cheap. And if you can find the X-T4, X-T5, the X-T4, whatever. But I know that the X-T3 is the one that I have, and I haven't used the 4 or the 5, but I thoroughly still love this camera in 2026. So I don't know. I thought this was, I'm teaching my daughter how to use a camera, and we've been using this, and so I thought it was time to make a video on it. So let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed today's content and you want to see more content like it, consider subscribing. But as always, stay cozy in that crazy world, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.